whenever I've been asked that, people are really thinking about it in one of two ways. It's either how do I actually start a presentation, in other words, what's the first word out of my mouth, or how do I start a presentation in terms of I've got a presentation that I have to do in 3 weeks' time, what do I do? At that point, that's where I think people go wrong, because most people who have to start a presentation do one of a couple of things, or at least in my experience, this is what I've seen. I see people just open up PowerPoint and starting to type, and I think that's a mistake. And the other thing I see people doing is borrowing Bill's presentation and John's presentation and Jane's presentation and taking pieces and then putting them together and saying, it's something like this, and I'll go from here.
I spent years getting those files to where they are now.
Betty, you've done a good job.
And I think that's also a mistake. Most people don't recognize a presentation for what it is.
Harmless looking things, aren't they? Yes, harmless looking. But so is the rear end of a mule.
It's one of the few opportunities you have that's really scheduled where you can have this kind of leadership moment where you can do something, where you can persuade people, where you can change the way they see something, where you can sell, whatever it is you're trying to do.
Unless you enjoy smashing your fingers, never grasp the file around the bottom, side, or top. See what I mean?
And so they don't really give it the time and attention it deserves. People, I think, are afraid of presentations. They go into safe mode. And safe mode is, well, I've got an hour or I've got 30 minutes. I've got to use the company or the corporate template. I'm going to borrow these 3 slides and I'm not going to do anything too risky. And you know, they do a reasonable job. But I think that's a mistake, because people are driven by this fear, time, and blindness to not do anything at all out of the box.
Mr. Barnes, I thought you appreciated all I've done here.
I do, Betty. I just didn't expect such resistance to new ideas.
The quick answer for me, if you're starting a presentation, the easiest thing to do is to literally draw a line down a piece of paper. On one side of the piece of paper, write down, what do I want to get out of this? And that's usually, for most people, a topic list, where they'll say things like, I want to cover the new product release schedule, and I want to cover the new features and functions. And I think they've been groomed to think in a topic way. That's fine. Put that list of topics down.
Can't be done.
It has. Now Gleam's done it. New Gleam's put preventive medicine in a toothpaste.
But then I think on the right side of the piece of paper, you want to write down, well, what is it they want to hear? And the first question is, well, who's they? And that's the audience, and I think you have to narrow in on 2 or 3 people. Say you're doing an ops review for your boss and your boss's boss, then the they is obviously your boss and your boss's boss, and what do they want to hear? If it's for a potential client, what do they want to hear? And when you really start to put yourself in their shoes, then you really hear something and start to answer some completely different questions, because the answer is not your topic list that's on the left.
Oh, gee whiz, I'm all black and blue already. Do I have to?
And what you do is, as you get these 2 different lists going and you really start to prioritize, then you can become really clear on what you want to do. I mean, we've done presentations for people that are doing board meetings where on the left-hand side, getting to number 2 and number 3 on the list is, I want to show up as someone who could potentially be the CEO around here one day. I don't want to show up like an idiot. So I don't think it's just the topic list. I think it's how you want to show up, what the tone of the presentation is. And once you get that clear, it almost clears your mind and frees your mind to do the next part of the work. And the next part of the work is writing the presentation. These are people's biggest problems, honestly. Number 1, you know too much, and number 2, you're too passionate about it. And if you know too much and you're too passionate about it, it's a real problem, because the other people don't know what you know. So how do you narrow that down into just a consumable chunk? And then, yes, you want to let that passion show through, but there's a certain limit to how much. So how do you narrow that down?
Now this is asking for rupture or strain. There's a right and a wrong way to do everything.
What we always tell people is that every presentation, every communication anywhere, no matter what, only ever has 3 parts: the hook, the meat, and the payoff. The hook is the thing that gets the audience on the edge of their seat, leaning forward and paying attention. And most people don't bother. They'll start with their hook being the agenda. It gives you a sense of what's coming, but it doesn't do the other part, which is getting people on the edge of their seat. The meat is a way of organizing the presentation in a way that makes sense. And the payoff is the what's in it for you, what's in it for them. That organizing the meat piece is really important. This happens to me all the time. I'll try and open a door because I think it's a pull, and really it's a push. I get stuck indoors all the time. It's a big problem I have. I think that's a lot of problems that people have in presentations. They structure it in a way that makes sense to them, but for everyone else it's a push door and it looks like a pull door. It's a real problem. So structuring that meat and saying, well, what's the best way to organize this stuff, whether it's I'm going to tell you 5 points to win in social media, or I'm going to give you the timeline that we're going along on this product release, having a way that people can follow along without having to explain, because there's way too much explanation that goes on in presentations. Number one, you have to know what you want to get into, and that's that line down the piece of paper, what do I want, what do they want, and then this way of structuring it, hook, meat, and payoff, and that's what we really tell people in terms of the way they present. At the end of the day, a presentation is a waste of time if it's just a long monologue. If you never fill out the second column, then you're only ever mentally filling out the first column, which is a topic list, which is a topic list of what you're expert in, which by definition becomes the monologue.
Learn the rules of safe conduct and apply them. Yours is the safest job in the world if you use your heads. It's up to you.